Thought you'd like to all see what I have gotten to today. Yesterday I got the last of the carpet strip, padding, and carpet pulled out of this room. And this is the living room. So you can see in general, they were sloppy about their painting, knowing that they were going to put carpet down. So there's some spills that they didn't clean up. That's not a problem. I can actually take the sanding that I'm going to do and take that right off. It's not a big deal. I could use solvent on it, but I don't want to dry out the wood underneath, as what has happened here. So there's been some spills that they just kind of left alone. And in general, in high traffic areas. So we've gone through, and the majority of the areas are going to clean up pretty well. I am pleased enough with the situation. So in some areas like here, somebody had taken the threshold off, and I don't know how long it's been gone, but when I power washed the house, I got a little bit of water in there. Those nails were so rusted and hard to get out, and staples. They used carpentry staples and carpet staples. So I was very disheartened to find what they had done here, and first I saw one or two. Somebody had gone through, they decided the floor was squeaking, and that this was their fix for it before they laid down the carpet. Now, at some point, somebody else had put very large finish nails through here. Now, these aren't a problem because I can, well, they are a problem. The non-problem about them is that I can sink them down, use a nail set, and then I can fill them in with some wood putty. Now, these holes are much larger. And what you can do is you can actually drill them out and put in an oak plug, and that's a nice finished look. But to do that in these small segments of wood, you can see they're, you know, a foot long or so strips that are all put down together piece by piece. New wood flooring, my in-laws have, and they are several feet sections at a time. And to correct any noises in their floor, they put these wood plugs in on top of a countersunk screw. I can't do that with these because of how it's done. So I'm either going to have to find oak plugs to put in here or just fill that with putty. I think I'm going to go the putty route because to put a plug in there, I'm going to have to make it a bigger hole. And unfortunately, the way they did this is they went in a straight row every about 1.5 feet across the entire room. But they only did the screws here and there. So I got George with me. I'm doing one screw at a time, protecting his little feet. He hates to have his socks on in the house. We've been having our shoes off because of the carpet. So I just work on them one at a time. If you're working on your hands and knees in this situation, I highly recommend some good quality knee pads. When I take a lunch break, I have to go pick mine up because I left them over at our old home. Lots of little projects here, but I thought this was a good thing to share with you because you never know what is going on underneath your wood floors, and a good thing to do before you paint so that if you have any accidents like this, then it's not a major deal. And then you're also not scuffing up your new baseboard painting job either. So you can see, because we had carpeting, you know, there's unfinished trim where the quarter round had been. And a quarter round's going to have to all go back on because it's very, very marred up where they had pulled it off before. So you can see like there's chunks like that. And I don't want to cut that all out and replace it with modern, different styles, like what we're doing, the colonial casing and the other new parts that didn't have that work done. But it's coming along really well. It's just slow work. But I'm happy to do the work on my own, because all this DIY stuff is such a huge money saver, and it's a learning experience, and it definitely increases your home value. For my time to come in here, it's just the time getting over here, the time getting involved. Let me show you what the kids are doing. So the kids are outside, they come in and out. They've been having lemonade stands every couple of days, and adults stop all day long, and this is the main throughway for most of the kids in town who are leaving the middle school and high school. So they get a big rush of kids coming from the middle school that are walkers, and the elementary school is a couple of blocks away. So they get a few kids walking this way from the elementary school, but even the parents are stopping the car so the kids can get a glass of lemonade. 50 cents a glass. People give them $1 and tell them to keep the change. Some people have even stopped and just handed them money and said, oh, I only want a half a glass, or I don't want any lemonade at all. Somebody wants something. Hello? They're out there selling their lemonade. These kids just ran up. They are hoping that these guys are here every day selling their lemonade. A lady just stopped and explained to them about gratuities and tips. So they got a little bit of homeschooling today, even out there on their own. They're doing math. They're learning about the chemistry of making homemade lemonade. They even get to see their old friend JC from the old neighborhood because she walks home from school. They don't get to see each other enough. I think JC just got a free cup of lemonade. Now this whole house, I've been working on the floors, and I had decided that they needed to be stripped. Now renting a sander and getting it here, I think it was $29 for 4 hours. I can't get it there and back in 4 hours. I can't do the whole house in a whole day, sand between coats of varnish, and get it back there in a day. So I would probably end up renting the thing for 2 or 3 days at least. So there's a local guy in our area. He has a company called Mr. Sandless. So this guy comes into your home and he strips the floors. So look this up on YouTube. It's real neat and interesting, but it's not going to be any cheaper in the end because the chemicals for stripping it, 64 ounces, and I want to say it was about $20. It might have been more, I kind of forget. It's been a few weeks since I purchased it. So you can see where it's a little darker here around the edges. There were some water spots. Now I think previously there may have been water damage. We talked about that with the roofing repair and when I had taken out the carpeting. And there's no evidence of any of that now. Somebody came through the entire house and did this texture finish on all the rooms except for that one spot in the kitchen. And I was looking here and there were some dark spots and I figured out that that was from twin size beds. So probably back in the day, twin size beds, maybe this was a room where a husband and wife didn't share a bed, maybe it was a couple kids sharing a room. And of course, when my tenants moved, they locked their dog in this room and the dog defecated and left urine spots that went through the carpet and the padding to here. So there was a dark spot here. Now there's different concoctions that you can do to get that out, but I thought I would start with taking the varnish off. So I'm using this citrus strip and there's almost no odor to it at all. They do recommend that you wear a chemical resistant glove. I didn't have anything like that on hand, so I've got some rubber gardening gloves. So as long as I don't get through the fabric end, it'll be fine. So I'm using just a small bowl and a brush, and I'm brushing it on the dark areas that were scratched up, just so that I can get those spots out. Right here, there's some really bad furniture scratches, and there's some really odd, like, flecks through here. It almost looks like maybe a dog, you know, daily for years jumped off a bed or something. It's really odd, and I don't know if I can quite get it picked up. See all those little marks? So it's all over in this section here, and then there was some water spots right through here, and I don't quite know what the reason is for that. We didn't wash the floor and leave any standing water in it, and it goes right through this whole area. Very unusual markings. So first I'm going over this. It says to let it sit for about a half an hour, and then you can scrape it off. So instead of running the sander and dusting up the house, I'm using this. Now, this is made for flooring, and you can use it this way. I found it works really great upside down this way, and it has a spot where you can thread on a handle for it. This is a very intense multi-step process, and the Mr. Sandless can come in and do a room in a day. I don't know if he can do a whole house in a day. I would imagine he'd be in and out of here for a few days to do it. So they recommend scraping it off, cleaning it up with scrubbers and paper towel, scrubbing it with a brush, wiping it down with the low odor mineral spirits. You could probably use high odor if you want, but the low odor gallon was available, so we picked that up. I think total I probably spent, you know, roughly $80 to $100 for all the supplies. I don't know for sure. It's hard to keep track of everything on the shopping list, but I'll look it all up and I'll link everything in the description down below for you. So it says to let this set for 30 minutes up to 24 hours to soften that top layer of varnish. We're going to give a little test spot here in a few minutes and see how it's coming up. In the meantime, I am working on measuring out for quarter round. Some of the rooms already had quarter round, like here. And in one of the other rooms, there's no quarter round. They must have taken it off or never had it on. So I'm gonna go get my measurements for that while this is setting. Okay, so I've been letting it sit. I tested it after about a half hour, and some of the varnish did come right off. Now, in some of the areas where it's a little darker, it's more or less like a surface rub from old stuff. There was a real heavy one right here, and you can see that? It just came right off. Now in this area where there was more weight from a corner post of a bed, it did not come off as easily. But look at this. So with an extension pole on the end of this, I can scrape out this room in a pretty short amount of time. Now it's getting late in the day and I did not realize that we were on daylight savings now, and I was losing track of the day and looked up thinking it's awful dark for this time. So Grandma's babysitting the kids. I gotta go pick them up and head home. You can leave this on for up to 24 hours. I really would like to brush out the whole room and let it set overnight. But it honestly makes me a little nervous having just raw chemicals sitting on an old floor like this, not knowing quite what's going on in the house. So I'm just wiping it off on the paper towel. It's really gummy, you see that? So, reminds me of newborn baby stools. Now this obviously isn't going to do anything for deep scratches like this. I'll have to go over these areas with some light sandpaper. With the varnish off, that won't be a problem. I can do it by hand without actually using a sander. I'm not quite sure what it's going to do about those water spots. Let's look at this area over here where I treated it. Basically, I did a test in a couple different areas of the room to see what the results are going to be after it's dry, because then I'll have a better read for the situation to whether or not I need to treat the entire room. Now this is where the end of the bedpost was, and then it leads into the water spot section. I figure it's better to do this in a room that's going to have a big bed in it in case it doesn't turn out, because I can always have a bed and a rug, and honestly it's on the dark end of the house. So if the pros do it, it's worth a shot, right? Okay, we'll clean this up and let it dry and see what it's going to turn out as. So I went through the house and I took all the worst spots and I treated it with a stripper. I went through, and just to show you, I am doing spots in this room. I'm working on the smaller of the 2 bedrooms right now. figured I would save the third bedroom for last, but anywhere that there was maybe an excess amount of paint or a water spot where I can use wood bleach to lighten the water spots, I wanted to go ahead and get these cleaned up. Now, with the amount of wear, these seem to be original or near original. It's really hard to say, because this room, I've got some gaps around the edges, and it almost looks like this is a new wood floor put on top of an older one. And it doesn't make sense to me other than if they did the entire house from water damage. I'm not real sure what I'm seeing underneath. There's just some little gaps around the edge where there's like a 1/4 inch against the trim. And that's why I'm going to use the 1/4 round to go around and hide all that. But in the meantime, 1/4 round will be last. So this is why they say buy lots of paper towel. You could clean this off. It's real gummy, so I just keep wiping it off, wrap it up, make a pile, get rid of them. Don't leave those sitting around. Any rags and things like that can self-ignite. Now the heat's not on in the house, and there's not really any ignition point, but it can still happen. So if there's a real dark spot from a furniture rub, water spots from plants, I went ahead and put this down. The step after this is to clean it with a stripper wash to get rid of the gumminess, and then mineral spirits over the whole floor to get it ready for its new varnish. In a lot of furniture or floor refinishing videos, they'll tell you to do a very fine sanding with like a mesh screen. It's a lightly abrasive screen, just like what would go on a window, but it's got emery on it. Now you can rent the great big machine and go over a room in seconds. So even if it's inconvenient, I can't really unload it by myself is the problem. That would be a better way to go than taking around a palm sander over an entire house on your hands and knees. So it's worth the back breaking and time saving to do that, and you'd be saving your knees tremendously. Yes, I do have knee pads here, but I'm just kind of going around, and as much as my bad toe will allow me, I just keep going around and doing this. So this is the last spot that I have to do this, but then I have to go through and get rid of the sticky residue after the fact. Now, where there's the real dark marks from furniture, it's cleaned up pretty good. But look at this sludge that comes up off of the floor. This is the orange and the varnish. So, at one point, there was such a bad stain on the carpet in this room that I had pretty well decided that it wasn't worth saving. I cleaned it. I tried several times. It stained the carpet so bad, it stained the wood floor in this room. So I thought this would be a good test for that spot. Don't know what it is. Maybe I don't want to know. The best cleaner is for cleaning paint, stripper, and varnishes off, because it says to do that step before mineral spirits. I think I could probably just clean the whole floor with mineral spirits and a scrub brush to get it really clean. You want to use a good vacuum before you do any sealer, because every little crack and crease is going to be holding some dirt. These handheld scrubbers. It has a changeable pad on a handle, which is real handy to have. because I can get some push and not have to curl my fingers up so much around it. And I just picked up the lid bin. They have replaceable heads or scrubber pads. So what I really need is a small little what I need is a shallow bucket to be able to set this in. So I'm just cleaning over the area that I went with. This is the mineral spirits. Okay, so now I'm just going to see if anything will wipe off on the rag. I want to feel if it's sticky. And then that will help me know how to proceed tomorrow. In the meantime, I see that I've missed a few staples or some broken off staples here and there, so I'm going to get those out while this is drying. In some areas I feel a little more sticky. Right here it was a bit sticky. Maybe an extra little shot. Even though this is low odor mineral spirits, you do want to have good ventilation. The temperature is dropping, so I'm going to crack a window open for the last little bit that I'm here working today. And I'll join you back here tomorrow. Okay, so I wanted to show you what is going on with the wood floors today. Everything had some time to dry out. See that spot right there? That is the spot that made me decide that this room needed to be redone. There's still some darkening there that the wood bleach might lighten up a little bit. A little bit of sanding might work. I have also heard of using just hydrogen peroxide and heat on that. So I'm gonna try some different things. Now, wherever I went over the floor with mineral spirits and scrubbed that and cleaned up, it did really good. You can see like right here, I didn't do as much, and there I skipped entirely. The mineral spirits really cleaned up the residue. So in this area, I didn't do anything at all. So I'm gonna go through all of it today with the mineral spirits and let that dry. And then I'm gonna use a cleaner or floor stripper. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about Zep floor stripper. So this area here, I had a lot of paint splatter, and I did not go over this area real heavy with the mineral spirits, just real lightly, and I can still see some residue left behind. The floor stripper would probably get that off, but I figured it would be best to get as much of it off as I can with the mineral spirits. So in this room, I didn't do any mineral spirits at all, and you can see how heavily it left the residue. This is darker than what the floor looked like before with just the little bits of stains and everything. So this room's gonna take me a little bit longer. I think I'm gonna just use my scrub brush on the handle to go over this with the mineral spirits and then wipe up any excess, because it's really, really down in the grooves. You see this? And that was not wanting to come up. It's waxy feeling is what it is. So we're gonna do the best we can with that. I'm getting the house warmed up. It is cold in here today. So this is the floor stripper that I'm using, and I think this was $12 or $14, I don't remember exactly. The orange citrus strip gel left a lot of residue. So because of that, they want you to wash it with a stripping compound of some kind and then follow with mineral spirits. You really start doing a lot of work. So on this floor, I still have some areas that I'm working on, but you can see I've gone through with the mineral spirits and I loosen up the sticky residue or any stuff that's like stuck down in it. Some of it is dry, like in this area, it's just kind of white and chalky looking, but I'm having to scrub it with the scrubber and the mineral spirits, scrape it again with my scraping blade, and today I do have my knee pads on, and then I am wiping it dry with paper towel to make sure that there's no excess like garbage or gunk on the floor. It's really globbing up that scrubber pad. So right now it's time for me to either flip this over. See, it just is gross. Well, I could have skipped all of that and went straight to that floor stripper. It is Zep floor stripper. So to make it real simple, you can mop it on, follow back with a scrub brush, a broom, anything. I just poked some small holes right in here because I picked up a bucket and a window washing scrubber, and the bucket had a hole in it, so I couldn't use it. So this was a good way to do it. And I just worked in small areas. Now, it's probably been an hour since I rinsed it, and because of the bucket, I had to hand scrub it. This is really strong smelling stuff. It's got a lot of chemical odor to it. Open up the windows. I've got these windows open. I've got this window open over here so that it's bringing in some of the air from the west and then moving it through the house. These are open. The mineral spirits is nothing compared to this stripper. So because I'm having to work on the floor on my knees, I'm a lot closer to it, and I did notice it. Wear a mask if you can. The only mask I have right now is just your regular going out in the public mask. I cannot get a chemical grade mask anywhere, so we are doing what we can to protect our lungs and get the work done, but it's coming along pretty good. I'm not seeing a lot of spots that it missed, and I will tell you, keep your scraping blade with you, because around the edges, any paint speckles that I find, I just scrape them off as I'm rinsing, and it's coming up good. So I think a clear coat of varnish or tongue oil or wipe on poly is about all we're going to need on this, and you can do 1 or 2 coats. I'll have to go out and rake the leaves while I'm waiting. All right, you let that sit for a minute or 2, maybe 10. I let it sit for a half an hour and it was drying out. So in this room, since it's quite a bit bigger than the last room, I'm just gonna do this half, and then I'll go over the last half here, overlapping in between to make sure that we're getting good, even stripping of this. I went over those corner post spots where the bed had been, and it was coming up quite a bit in that corner. More so than this area here, so let it sit for a minute and scrub it some more. In the meantime, this floor has dried out pretty well. It could probably use another hour or 2. I had it pretty wet. This is just with 1 coat of rinse. I've thought about rinsing it a second time because I see a couple spots where I dribbled that it might affect it later on. I'm not really sure. But you can see right here, as I was cleaning up, I had a couple of dribbles on my way out of the room. So it shouldn't really affect it, but I just want to make sure that they're good and dry before I start treating it or doing anything. I may do a second rinse. I'm not real sure. I start losing daylight, I wanted to show the results of just the orange stripper in the living room. This was a really bad water spot, and you can see really well where it took off the varnish. But the main thing is this Zep floor stripper is taking it off without any extra mineral spirit scrubbing and things like that. And you can see this waxiness. That is the residue that's being left behind. Now on this floor, I have some areas where I filled in screw and nail holes that somebody had thought that they would try to unsqueak the floor. So right through this area, you can see where there had been water coming in from under the door. I power washed, and the threshold was missing its weather strip, and I didn't know until I had come back and saw the discoloration. That was pre-removal of the carpet, so I probably had wet carpet sitting on there and didn't know it. But just taking the varnish off seemed to have helped this area a little bit. I started with 1 gallon of the Zep floor stripper, and I've got enough here to do the 3rd bedroom for sure. It's a small room also here, and it's rectangle. I have to go pick up some furniture movers so that I can slide these easily, and I don't know if that'll work really well on the wood floor or not. But I got to get these out of here. The neighbor gave me her nursery set when I told her I wanted to stage the room. These bedrooms are really too small to have 2 dressers and a crib in here, because that's going to be wall-to-wall furniture. I could put the 1 dresser in a room with a twin-size bed, which is all this room can really handle. I was really trying to stage the rooms without any large furniture like dressers, just because I don't want to have to move them. And, you know, we could have snow any day. A lot of the other YouTube channels that I watch, they're getting snow. So I'm liking how this is looking, but they do recommend a full day to dry. I'm finding some areas that look like they have wax from candles, and that isn't going to cover with the varnish. So I want to make sure that I get those areas off really well. This area here, it almost was like a candle had dripped here and there. But look at how much lighter this spot is. So I can go over it with the hydrogen peroxide. I could go over it with the wood bleach. Now the wood bleach I got is a 2-part system instead of just straight oxalic acid. I am noticing I have one spot here that it seems a little dark still, and it's almost like the varnish just didn't come up off of that. But once you start varnishing it, filling it with furniture, putting in the quarter round, this is what I was talking about the quarter round. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is a second set of wood floor slats under there. It's just the oddest thing, and neither one of them reached all the way to the edge. I just don't know what to think about that. 2 sets of wood floors. So I'm just assuming it got damaged and they overlaid it. So I'm gonna dump my water, get some fresh air. I am gonna need another gallon to do the hallway and the living room. So in the meantime, I can start sanding my nail spots in the living room while this is drying. I just finished it, and I went back over the whole center area because I actually had to walk in there on that, and it was quite messy. But it's looking a bit better. And once it's got 2 coats of varnish on it, I can start moving furniture in to stage it. Okay, so it's the next day, and I wanted to show you how the floor has dried out in here. And I was really concerned about this floor with all the dark spots that it had, and they all came up really well. And the room that I had more concern about that made me want to rent the sander to strip everything was this room. Now I only have 1 slightly dark spot right there, and I think that's just there's a little more varnish in that area because I second coated it all around the edges because I actually ran out. The Zep floor stripper is a 1 gallon container, and I needed like 1.25 gallons to be able to do these 3 bedrooms. Now I've still got the hallway to do, and you can see I had some paint spill here. I don't remember what happened. I think I stepped in it. I've got some sanding to do out here, and I was really wanting to do this today and varnish the floors, and I started thinking about it. I really didn't want my wet stripping stuff touching where I was trying to work. So I saved it for the end of the day and went ahead and moved furniture, finished up my kitchen floor and my trim and things like that. It'll make it a lot easier working on that living room. And I got in a yank yesterday and just decided to go ahead and use cardboard to move the furniture to the living room. But when I move it back, I'm going to either have to have help carrying it or something. But this is a first layer, and this is a rub-on varnish. I'm using the Minwax Antique Oil Finish. Now, I've used the tung oil in the past, and that also is a rub-on varnish. You can brush this on, you can rub it on. It dries softer than just straight varnish, but it works really good for these wood floors. I have done the tung oil in the past, like I said, and I couldn't find it. I've always gone to Home Depot in the past when I used it, and I would just always clean a floor after a tenant moved out, coat it with a new layer of the tung oil, rubbed it on literally with a rag like I was polishing furniture, just coated it really good, came back in a day, and it was always drying hard. The fumes of this are very minimal. It's really easy to do. And as you can see, I decided to save my knees. I got an applicator pad and I'm just putting it on with the grain across the room, leaving myself a way to get out. So you can see the color difference here just with the clear, with it being wet. It's a totally clear product. I haven't had yellowing with it in the past, so it'll be interesting to see how the antique oil finish turns out tomorrow. So today I'm putting a second coat on, and I decided to not go with the antique oil finish for my second coat. I've used teak oil in the past, and they've changed the packaging, so it threw me off. It used to be a yellow can. Now they're no longer selling the Minwax products at Home Depot, and that's where I used to always go to. So I kind of looked over the aisle, and it was on a different shelf than the antique oil finish that I picked up. So had I just used the teak oil by itself, because I stripped the wood, it probably still would have needed 2 coats also, but this also provides a UV protection, and it says it's made for dense woods. And since this is an oak floor, I thought it's really good to stick with the product that I already knew. It was better than what I had even known. But had I used it by itself, I wouldn't get that aged look where the antique oil gave that a darker tone, where with this floor, it with a clear coat tends to look more orange, and I was trying to get away with that, which is why I recoated all of the doors that I did. Like, these doors were all orange and matched the floor, and I wanted a darker tone, and I didn't know quite how I was going to get around that with the wood floor. So this was a good solution to that, because side by side, I think that's going to look more complementary than an orange tone to the floor. So this has been almost 24 hours. It's dry enough that I can continue on with my first coat, but I had decided if I just stay a couple of boards in, I can second coat the bedrooms, because right now all my furniture has been moved to the kitchen area that my neighbor gave me, and I had to get it out of the way. So I picked up some floor movers so that I can actually, with felt pads, move them into place if nobody's here to help me. And in the meantime, I'm gonna rub this on by hand. So I have my knee pads on again today, and I'm gonna spread this all over the whole floor. This way I have a little more control with the product so that it's not puddling and pooling around the edges at all, because I want to get it rubbed in deep to allow that, the deep texture. They recommend with teak oil that you buff it anyways. So this is kind of an application and a buff at the same time. I've left it this way in the past. It is basically an oil and a varnish mixed together. It is intended to be used by itself, but you can poly coat it or use a polyurethane varnish on top of it also if you want. The antique oil finish does give it a duller finish without that high gloss, and it does give water protection, but I think the teak oil is going to take it one step further for long-term protection, especially with wood floors. All right, I'm back at it, It's a cold, blustery day. I got a helper outside blowing the leaves for me so that I can do a final coat on the floors inside. Now, it's kind of a yes or no situation. I could do another coat of the teak oil or tung oil, and I made that realization this morning that I'm using teak oil, not tung oil, and it's tung oil that I've used in the past. It finished very similar, almost exact, and I could not find just plain tung oil on the shelf, which is why, duh, the package was different. So I don't know what happened with it. They just don't have it locally to me. I'm sure if I Googled it, I could find it somewhere. You can see the light from above shining and reflecting off of the finish. And in some areas, it's less than others. So this floor, I would say, definitely needs another coat of the oil. In some areas, it's thinner than in others. I think it's just a matter of how much of the original came off or how much it soaked up. Like right in here, I can see like almost a bare spot. So I could go through, touch it back up. The applicator pad that I used is a foam pad glued onto a plastic like board. And see, I can see another bare spot right here where it just soaked it right up. So I definitely want to put another coat on this. Now, all in all, for the 3 bedrooms, I used 2 cans, a little less than 2 cans for all 3 rooms. I had bought 6 more, I think. Maybe I bought a total of 5. So this room, I'm sure, will take about 1.5 cans. That allows me enough to put over the whole room. However, this foam pad, I wrapped it up in plastic, and every time that I've used this with the antique oil and the other, it starts falling apart, and I don't have a backup, which means I'm gonna be up on my hands and knees to finish this. This pad might hold up to get the job done today, but I really don't want to quit partway through to have to go buy another pad. So if I put a coat on that bedroom, well, rather, if I coat the hallway, I can't get back to these back 2 bedrooms. I'm kind of torn on the situation. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the bedrooms, and maybe we can take a lunch break since I have a helper today anyway. We can run downtown to the local hardware store, pay twice as much as what it would cost, and buy a replacement pad. However, this came from Menards, and I don't know that they are going to have a replacement at Home Depot or the local hardware store. So we might be just better off going up to Walmart, Meijer, and Home Depot are all right next to each other when you get into the Okemos area, which is pretty handy. But this floor turned out perfect. It doesn't have any bare spots. There's like 1 or 2 thin spots, but they're not bare, and it could easily just be touched up. But I'm super happy with how this room turned out. Right there is the one spot, and you really, when you come in the room, if you didn't know it was there, you don't see it. So I'm fussy, I see it, but I'll tell you in person, it looks a lot less noticeable than it does on the camera. See? I hardly see anything at all. This makes an excellent office space or nursery because it does have a closet. It is a bedroom. It's just always odd that it's got that slide-through door to the eating area, and I always thought it would make a great bigger space for an actual dining room, but you don't want to give up a bedroom space for a renovation. Well, I'm going to get to it with my teak oil, not my tung oil, and get another coat on here. Well, this is it. This is my final coat. I went back and took care of any touch-ups. The one day it was pretty cold and the breeze was blowing on here, and wherever I had it on a little too thick, it wanted to shrivel like nail polish. So I just slightly buffed it off and put a new layer of the teak oil over the top. But you can see all my problem areas where I had water spots. It looks so much better than it ever did. I got a nice gloss finish that's not too glossy. It worked out really good. I tell you, how these rooms turned out just absolutely amazes me. And I've said it before, I'm pleased as punch. So overall, this was well worth the time spent in doing it. Not having to go with the sander, hauling it back and forth, all the multiple layers. And with the teak oil, the nice thing is that every layer could go over the last without sanding your previous layer, which was a super plus for me. So as you can see, I've been doing some staging here and getting some furniture in place now that it's been nice and dry. It's been a week. I've been opening up the windows on the warmer days to get a nice breeze going through the whole house to hopefully help carry away some of the fumes or smells. It's not very bad, but it still has that new varnish or new finish smell. I always have a hard time with that whenever I go into a home that has new carpet because of the off-gassing of the different chemicals. So it's a good thing that we're getting this done a little bit in advance of having the house listed. We're getting very close. We've got a little bit of plumbing issues to go through in the kitchen and the bathroom where the sinks haven't been hooked up yet, but it's just small finish work at this point. It's nice that some cold weather is coming in, but I sure do enjoy those warm days that we had yesterday and the day before. It was 76, 78 degrees, and today is a chilly 45. It's good to get jobs done like this when you can open up the windows for some ventilation, but it can still be done and accomplished during the winter months. Contractors do it every day, so can you. So I hope this helps you with refinishing your wood floors and deciding what to do in your home selling situation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!